Hello, everybody. Welcome back to How Come? It's the end of Pride here, but it's the beginning in some parts of Europe. So we have a fantastic episode with Bronwyn Ariel Isaac. She is a comedian and writer who's been published in Bustle, Cracked, Reductress, and is currently working on a solo show, Why Are You Here? That will be performed in Amsterdam and the U.S. Joining us is Bronwyn's girlfriend, Alex Smith, musician, security researcher, and your favorite Scorpio's favorite Scorpio. This episode's so good. It's about Alex coming out to Bronwyn as trans, and then Bronwyn figuring out that, surprise, she's into women. But, you know, it's a lot more nuanced than that. So I can't wait for you to hear it. And if you want to hear even more of it, and more me, and more Bronwyn, and more Alex, and you want to support this podcast because you're like, oh, Remy's put her blood, sweat, tears, and cum into this podcast, and she needs money. I'm just going to say it. I need money. I need help. I need support. Join patreon.com/howcome. $5 gets you every episode ever, unedited. A lot of them have video. And you'll be supporting a great cause. Also, if you don't want to spend any money, that's fine. But share the podcast with your friends. Rate, review, subscribe. Tell people about it. Maybe if there's like a little clip of it that you like in your ears, you put it on your story and you're like, you guys should listen to this too. Any kind of support helps. Even just DMing me and saying, hey, I see you and I see you still doing this. That would be great. But yeah, this episode's really fun. I think you're going to love it. I love it so much and I can't wait for you to hear it. So let's get it started.
How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna jizz.
Welcome, Bronwyn, and welcome, Alex.
Thank you so much.
Hi.
Happy to be here.
Likewise.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you guys here. And you guys are streaming in from Amsterdam.
That's
Amsterdam
right.
summer.
Where you have been living since when?
Like late 2022.
It's been 2 years now.
2 years. Oh my God. Okay. And did they just have Pride?
So Amsterdam has Pride in August, even though most of the world has it in June. But they kind of double dip. Mm-hmm. So the official Pride week is the first week of August, but they still do Pride events in June. So kind of yes.
Mm-hmm. I just asked because you had like a really cute video come out about your couple, and it seemed like a Pride-esque video. So they're just kicking things off early.
Yeah. So we did this campaign with TLC that filmed a year ago. They filmed it early. And so it's released across different European countries already because Pride is in June in a lot of countries. But then it's going to be released in the Netherlands in August. And so we're kind of in this funny zone where it's online, but it's not on TV where we live, but it is in other countries.
Okay, cool. Well, so you're getting like accustomed to it before it like you guys become local celebrities.
Yeah. We're, kind of preparing for the paparazzi and all of that.
Something like that.
Like that. Okay, so let's talk about your relationship because you guys have been together quite a while.
It's true.
Yeah, it's
nearly a decade now.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How did you guys first meet?
Well, we actually met on Tinder, which we always kind of joke. I know that for me, I was going on a lot of really horrible dates and I was about to delete the app and Alex was really cute. And I was like, let's try one last date before we delete the app.
Whoa.
And then we hung out. Yeah, we hung out and we talked for 6 hours. On our first date. Yeah. And we also hooked up on our first date. And I was like, oh, shit. What if I catch feelings? Like, I was just trying to, do a little hookup. And that was our first meeting. Alex, what was your...
Cute. Yeah, what was your experience of that?
Oh, I think for me, I had gotten out of my last long-term relationship like maybe a year or two before I met Bronwyn. So me being on Tinder, I was like very new to Tinder. And I was just trying to like, I don't know, get back into like going on a date. So when I went out with Bronwyn, I hadn't really been on a date in like a while.
Whoa. It's like her last hurrah on the app and your first hurrah on the app.
Basically.
And then they both just ended up being both of your last hurrah.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah. That's so cute.
I think we were both in denial a little bit. At least I know I was, I had feelings pretty quick, but was like, oh, no. Like, it's casual. It's fine. And then after a few months, we were like, oh, fuck. Like, yeah, this is real, which is good. But both of us were very much trying for casual, which I think was actually, it's nice when it works out that way. I feel, very lucky.
Yeah, because I feel like not that dating to date isn't a good thing. Like, a lot of people are on there to find a relationship, but when you're doing it casually, it's like, okay, yeah, let's just see where this goes. Let's see if I like you. And like, every conversation is just a conversation. And if it leads to another one, then like, cool. And then if we happen to fall into a relationship, then like, isn't that interesting? Instead of like, if this doesn't lead to a relationship, like, it's a failure.
Yeah. I feel like that's the way I kind of live.
Really?
I'm not like, I don't know. A lot of people that know me know that I'm like notorious for not planning things, but I don't know. I like to make like blueprints. I'm interested to see how a connection evolves without having to, I don't know, without placing too much expectation on what I think it should be or what I think it could be. It's just nice to experience something. And I think at the time I was in a place where I was open to allowing that to happen.
Yeah. How long was your relationship just before?
3 years, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had already experienced like a real relationship.
I'd been in, a pretty long-term relationship before that. I was very young. I think I met her when I was 20, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And Bronwyn, had you been in a lot of relationships before, or one?
A lot of relationships, but not necessarily long, good ones. It was a lot of like 6-monthers. Because we were, I think we were 26 when we met, so I was bopping around. I think my longest relationship was a year before Alex.
I don't know why I'm always like envious of people who can just date someone for a year. I'm like, oh, it sounds like a flight, you know, like at a restaurant where you can just like sample like little bits of things. I'm like, I've never been able to do that. I just orders like so much pasta.
Yeah, I feel like that was my mentality, was like, let's try it out. And then honestly, you know, once it gets hard or annoying, okay, we can just move along.
Yeah. No, I'm just like, I ordered the pasta. I have to finish it.
What you're going to eat the rest of your life.
Yeah, sorry.
Totally.
Okay, so Alex, when you guys met and started dating, you hadn't come out yet, and you were still living as a man.
Yeah, I was he, him, his then.
Okay. And obviously, like, we're very evolved women here, but did you have like typical gender roles when it came to dating? Like, were you the date planner and like the buying of dinners and like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff?
That's interesting. Now that I think about it, I don't really think so. I feel like what happened was, if you proposed the going out, then like you organized the going out. Yeah. I feel like that's how it went. Yeah. I'm not sure that I would say probably to some extent, because being raised and socialized as a man, my family is from the South. So there's a certain level of like chivalry that's like chiseled into your bones. So yeah, like I probably did a lot of those things automatically. You know, she probably could tell you better, but yeah, I don't really think it was ever like a strong presence. I'm not sure I was ever the kind of person in our dates where I was like, no, you don't pay, I pay kind of thing.
Right.
Alex never demanded like I pay in a way that felt gendered, but she did make a little more money, like had more of an established job, and so she was very generous and kind of like, I can get it. And we did kind of take turns as far as, you know, who's planning a night out, that kind of thing. But also the Southern upbringing was one of the things that attracted me to her, because I mean, I know you've talked with people about this on the podcast, and it's a topic in general. Dating in New York, as romantic as it is in the movies, is often not in real life.
if you meet somebody in the rain, it probably like stinks outside.
Yeah, exactly.
Like it's not beautiful.
Exactly.
It's horrible. There's rats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
It's like, it's not cute.
like everybody's burned out. And so the morning after our first date, she made French toast and she had really nice European butter. Where did you get that butter from?
It was from like a bodega, because I was living on Schaefer and Central then. So yeah, it's from like a bodega that's not far.
But
it was like, it's like butter, it's imported butter from France, basically.
And I was like,
Yeah,
wow.
nice.
And like, it was just so like, oh, of course I'm going to feed you. And I realized obviously that eating breakfast, you know, on paper, that's not a high bar, but for what I was experiencing in my mid-20s, the kind of Southern hospitality that, like, of course, you know, I have food, I'm going to cook, you know, I'm going to make sure. I was very into that because it was like the best of, there wasn't any gender roles, but there was like a certain level of care.
Yeah, totally. No, I remember there was one time I was in London for like a week and I had a one night stand with this guy who was like a really, really sweet guy. And it was the first time that a man had plugged my phone in the morning for me. Like I could hear it go zzz, and I was like, and he brought me a glass of water. And after dating like a bunch of shitheads, like just those little things, you're like, oh my God, like you see me as like a person. Like not necessarily, you don't like want to date me, but like you value me a little bit. And like, that feels nice.
It's like, oh, I'm a person who could like need to drink water.
Yeah. And like might want to use their phone today.
And and you're not even like holding this over me. It's not like, look at me doing this for you.
Yeah. It's not a pre-sex.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
ooh, look what I could do for you. It's like, we already did the thing, but I'm going to get you hydrated.
Actually, besides the breakfast, one of the first things I found really romantic was I was on my period and I had a diva cup. And
you're gonna tell this story.
do you feel comfortable with me telling it?
No, it's such a good story.
So
she goes, no, yes.
Yeah, no, do it.
Yeah.
So we end up, you know, hooking up, and so I take my diva cup out at one point, etc. I forget it the next day because, you know, near the end of my period, and you know, at this time, obviously, I don't know that Alex is trans, so I am operating on the element of like heterosexual dynamic. I left my diva cup with someone I just started seeing. I'm not embarrassed about having it. You know, it's a normal part of having a body, but it is a little embarrassing to leave your diva cup just like dangling out on someone's floor.
Totally. Yeah.
And so I have to awkwardly text and be like, hey, so I don't know if you know what a diva cup is, but it's like a little plastic thing that catches my blood. I think I left it in your bedroom. And I guess, Alex, you'll correct me on this. I don't know if at that point you had already washed it or if you were about to. But Alex basically looked up the proper way to wash it so that it would be like sanitized the next time I saw her. And I was like, holy shit, are you kidding me? And the funniest part is Alex is like, well, yeah, what else would you do? Like, I'm not going to give it to you.
That's so funny.
Well, you have to include a very essential piece of information in the story. So, like, I'm on the autism spectrum. So,
I was going to ask because that answer of like, what else would you do is very spectrum coded.
Definitely, I'm on the spectrum.
Okay.
So, like, I found it. So, yeah, she did text me, but I had found it and I didn't know what it was. So then when she texted me, I was like, I've actually never heard of this object. What is it? So then I like Googled it and I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense. So then in my head, I was like, based on its purpose, and it seems similar to other things like mouth guards that I've used in my life.
Yep.
So let me see how it's sanitized, because like, why would I give you a thing, I don't know, back in a quality that I didn't receive it? Like, that doesn't make sense. So yeah, I did actually like look up how do you properly clean this thing, because like
I'm dead.
Some stuff like that you can't use like, you know, soap on because it actually breaks down.
Yeah, it would
and I was
disintegrate
like, well,
it.
Exactly. And we don't want to do that. So yeah, I like looked up how to clean it, and then that's when that happened.
I love that so much. And the thing is, so just going back to like the gender roles thing, the reason I ask that is because like I feel in a good relationship, like there's all these conversations about like the man in the relationship should do this or whatever, and the whatever, who should do this. And Bronwyn, when you were like, well, Alex had like more money at the time, so like she would like treat me. Like I feel like it's less about like gender in any relationship and more about like what can I bring to this relationship to show you that I care. You know, like whether it's like I have more money than you, so like I can treat you to that because like it's no sweat. Or if it's like, you know, I find something that you have, and like just because I know it's important to like your hygiene, I can figure out how to wash that for you. Like it's just like a nice caring thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like it should be collaborative. You know, relationships should be like, oh, I like to do this and you don't like to do this. Great, I can do this. Or I'm good at this. I can bring this. You're good at that. Or I have this. You have that. Versus this kind of preset, rigid,
transactional thing.
Yeah, and then
right?
it's like this element of like keeping track and like preset expectations, which I don't think works for most people.
And keeping score.
Yeah.
No, and also like nobody likes for stuff to feel transactional.
Yeah.
You know, like then it's like, am I here because I want to be or because like I feel like I have to be?
Yeah.
And that takes like the romance out of it.
And it kind of it turns things into homework, like expressions of care. And then it's more like you get in trouble if you're not doing something versus there being excitement or gratitude because you did or because someone else did it. It's more like, oh, are you doing the things you're supposed to do?
Yeah. Okay, so Bronwyn, you mentioned that at the time you didn't know that Alex was trans. Alex, did you at the time know? Like, how long have you known I'm a girl?
So I guess like historically, the first time I ever became aware that I might not be in the quote unquote right body, I was 15.
Okay.
I remember having a very there was definitely a period where I was just deeply concerned about sort of what my sexuality was, because I didn't, in my community at the time when I was in high school, you could be gay, you could be bi, or you could be straight. And back then the narrative was, because this is like 2005, so the narrative was like bisexuality was sort of the intersection between those 2 points that you sort of cross going from one to the other. So I didn't have the language at the time to describe what it felt like to feel like a gay girl in a boy's body.
Yeah.
And then like my home life was very chaotic and abusive, so I didn't really have the space to explore that beyond a certain point. So I'm pretty sure, I think mentally I think about it as I forgot about it, but I'm pretty sure I just repressed that memory for a long time. So between like 16 and 28, I pretty much lived my life. I lived my life with this feeling in the background, always kind of operating under the surface, but then not being in a position to really explore it until when I was in my late 20s, I was in therapy at the time. And I remember telling my therapist that I felt like I couldn't love Bronwyn in the way that I wanted to as a man. And my therapist was like,
yeah.
She's like, run that back.
Yeah.
Say that again. And let's pull on that. Let's tug on that thread a little. Yeah. And then that memory of how I used to feel in school came up. And then other things in my life, like when I was in college, my friends often described me as like a raging lesbian in a man's body. And so it was like all these things throughout my life all of a sudden started to make sense. It was almost like the first time you get what I imagine getting glasses is like for the first time. And you're like, ooh, I can see. Yeah. So that was what it was like. What it was like for me. It was something that I remembered feeling, and then like all these years later, I had the language to finally describe what I was experiencing. Like, oh, this is called gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Oh, this is called transgender. Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I think also too, and I don't know if you agree with this, but being on the spectrum, and not having the language, it probably prevented you even more, because if you're like, if I can't define it, then is it real? And then being given the language, you're like, exactly.
Yeah, that's a lot what it's like, at least for me anyway. Yeah, because I don't want to speak for everybody on the spectrum, obviously, but yeah, I think it's hard to address yourself to a concept when it's very difficult to define it. Like the way my brain works is I need to understand things like contextually. So if I can't get the contours of a feeling, it's very hard for me to put a name to it, even if I can describe very accurately how it feels to me personally.
Yeah. Like if you're looking at literal boxes that are like, you could be this, 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 and you're like, but there's this other thing, but like it's like, it's so nebulous at this point that like, I can't put myself into that thing because it doesn't quote unquote exist.
Yeah. Or at least like this thing I feel doesn't quite mesh onto
it doesn't fit
these choices I have.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to do with it. So I'll just let it sit here.
And so this therapist, obviously you guys were already dating. Did they say like this could be what's going on, or did they kind of like Socratic method you into coming out?
So my work with this particular clinician was a lot of, how to say, so like being on the spectrum, I'm always very introspective. So I remember when I first started with her, I described it as like, I have the data, but I don't always know how to analyze it. Like I'm obsessed with the way that I think and how I feel, because in order to navigate any small interaction in my everyday, I have to like compute thousands of different things all at once. So a lot of it was just like me giving her data and her like adding a little something, or her like changing a perspective, being like, oh, what if you thought about this in this way? And I was like, oh, that's interesting. So she would often let me self-discover things. So she would just like add a little carrot to my analytical process and then let the train run.
Cool. And do you remember how long it took from that, like being like, I don't know if I can love Bronwyn properly as a man, to like, I figured it out?
Pretty much. So let's see. I think I had that conversation in like November of 2019. And then once I got comfortable with the idea that I was like, okay, transgender is cool, that actually explains precisely what this feeling is.
Yeah.
And then contextualizes a bunch of events in my life. Yeah, things kind of picked up very quickly after that.
Cool.
Because once I could name it, I was like, okay, it's this.
Yeah.
So now the question is, how do I get, the thing I wanted to do more than anything was get comfortable with this concept of like, I feel like I'm supposed to live a different, like I feel like my gender should be different, but now I need to get comfortable with like what that change looks like.
Yeah.
I just honestly get comfortable with the idea of being trans. And that took probably a couple of months, because I think I was, if that's November 2019, I know I started hormones in April of 2020, because my anniversary for that is 4/20/2020.
Hell yeah.
I was like, great. I was like, perfect day.
That's amazing.
Day. Yeah, it was awesome. So yeah, like it kind of happened sort of, I don't know, maybe very quickly, because again, like once I had the answer, my brain is like, okay, this is what it is. Like there's no other like choice.
And then you go into COVID and you cocoon and you're on all of your meds, and then you blossom to the rest of the world. Okay, Bronwyn, I have a question for you. Were you queer before this relationship?
No. So
okay.
I think I'm one of those people where the closet was glass. Because because a lot of people, like when we kind of came out as a couple, maybe over a year after she came out to me, they thought I was already out as bi, which makes sense.
I did.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Like I fully, yeah.
Yeah, it totally makes sense, because I mean,
even though I've only known you guys together.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh yeah, I assume that she's dated women before, or she's bi. I had
a friend who said that I was a stage lesbian.
A stage one?
Yeah, she said like
What does that mean?
Her explanation was like, I just didn't seem like I wanted to talk about men that much, which is funny because I feel like I complain about them plenty. But so I wasn't out, and I did have questions, but I've always been pretty disconnected from my sexuality, because kind of the perfect storm of religious trauma and, you know, some experiences of abuse. And then also just kind of like when I'm depressed, I don't really want to have sex. So my sexuality is like, I can be really into it or not. And so with all of these layers.
Or sometimes you think it's okay. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, exactly. Sometimes I'm like, sure.
I'm like, people either love me, they hate me, or they think I'm okay.
Exactly. Exactly. And so where I'd landed was that I was straight-ish, you know, and but I'd also always thought like nobody's really 100% one sexuality, like it's always a spectrum. But then I think when Alex came out, I realized that I actually had to have conversations with myself about it and how much of my own, you know, I was raised kind of culty in like very weird churches and everything. And even though I thought that shit was stupid, it still was what I heard for 20 years.
It's like the water that you're like, what do they call it? Boiled in or something.
Baptized
like
in, yeah.
Steeped in, maybe.
Yeah, baptized in. Boiled.
Exactly. And so, yeah, when she came out to me, I was like, oh, I don't know if I'm like I know I love you already, but I don't know if I'm gay, and like I don't know if I know how to be like in this like very obvious way. Like, what does that mean? So yeah, I wasn't out yet, which it is really funny now because now I'm like, girl.
Yeah,
it was pretty obvious.
Look at the bangs. Come on.
I mean, like, the bang. I went to art school. Like, hello, come on.
So those first conversations must have been like very interesting, but also kind of charged for both of you. Like, I imagine, Alex, there might have been some fear going into those on your part.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think initially I was just concerned about like, what does it mean to be a woman? I think for a long time, I lived most of my life seeing it from the outside, quote unquote. And so then I was like, oh, well, now if I'm going to live it, what does that mean? And now I'm faced with a lot of these questions. And of course, when I first started to really experiment with, especially presentation, I was concerned that I had all these new questions about myself that I never had before. A story I love to tell is about like the first time I encountered women's clothing sizes and realized that none of these numbers mean anything.
Yeah.
Like I can be in the same store looking at the same rack, and like a 6 on one part of the rack and a 6 on the other part of the rack are two completely different things. And all of a sudden, why am I so self-critical that
they'll never make sense?
Exactly.
I'm so many different sizes.
There's no rhyme or reason. It's just like, how do you select things? And then, I was like, all of a sudden I have these weird self-critical questions about like, why do I care that I'm an 8 or a 6, an 8 instead of a 6, a 10 instead of an 8? Like, why do these things matter suddenly? So I already had a bunch
they
of
got you already.
It was instant. It was instant.
Yeah.
Like the first time I put on a jumpsuit and I had to use the bathroom in a public place, and I basically had to get naked. And I was like, I totally get it.
That's the
this
experience.
Industry is evil.
Yeah.
This industry is evil. I don't have pockets. I have to have a handbag now. I was like, patriarchy. Understood.
There's nothing for me to put the bag on. I'm naked and the floor is wet.
Correct.
That is the jumpsuit bathroom experience.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. And I was like, light bulb. I understand completely now. They were all these women in my life have always been right the whole time.
Yeah.
Then coming out to her I will admit, it was terrifying. I was so afraid to be honest about it. And it's not that I thought that she would react badly. I just knew that something big was going to change, and that I would need to. I think for all of us, it's when you're in a moment where you're asking for acceptance, that's a scary moment, regardless of who you're asking.
Totally.
And this is a person that I love so much, and my life with her is so good, and I feel so afraid that I'm going to blow it up with this truth. But it's like, I can't and there's no way to avoid this moment. Like, I know it feels so true to me that I can't deny it, and I don't want to suppress this new sort of feeling I'm having. So we have to face this moment. There's no choice, but it's not any less scary to tell the person you love that, like, oh, by the way, yeah, I'm a girl the whole time. Sorry.
You're gay.
It's like, I hope
you're like,
that's
I'm
cool
not
with
just
you.
telling you something about me. I'm telling you something about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Wait, this is just like a really stupid aside, but I saw this video the other day that it was on TikTok, and this woman's like, if you ask men what they would do for one day if they could live as a woman, what would they do? And like a lot of the men's answers are like, get guys to buy me drinks and like get guys to buy me stuff and fly me out or whatever. And she's like, they just want guys to do stuff for them. And it's like, you could do that already if you were gay. Like, it sounds like you're gay. And so I texted my boyfriend. Wait, this is going to take a little scrolling. Where the fuck is this? Okay, so I go, if you were a girl for a day, what would you do? He goes, I don't know, get banged. Like, no, get guys to buy me stuff, straight into get banged. I go, buy a man? He goes, yeah, probably. He goes, or try to come. And I was like, okay. And he goes, or like, can I be pregnant? Because that would be cool too. Like, can I be a girl for a day when I'm like 9 months pregnant? I go, yeah, sure. I go, I don't see why not. He goes, yeah, then I would just lay around eating things and feeling what it feels like to be growing a human. That sounds awesome. And also get banged by a guy. And I go, nice. I would probably like to be 9 months pregnant for one day as well. Also, you're gay. And he goes, yeah.
I love that he wants to be 9 months pregnant. That was not going to be my guess.
Pregnant.
That's so specific.
That's beautiful
like,
energy.
that actually really does mean he's thought about like what does that feel like? That's an experience so different from mine. I don't want to know what that feels like.
I mean,
yeah,
not all women can be pregnant either. It's such a specific thing.
Exactly.
Not everybody gets to be 9 months pregnant.
Yeah.
So it's very, I was like, but then at the same time I was like, don't like narrow us down to like pregnancy.
Oh,
That's
so we're either fucking or we're pregnant. And he's like,
we're fucking or pregnant. Yeah.
He's like, I'm fucking and pregnant.
If I had a dick for a day, and I was in like a man's body, I would jack off, obviously, for like 15 hours. And I would go to a beach topless.
15 hours. That's stamina.
Yeah, 15 hours.
Do you think it would get
I don't know. I don't know if I'm that kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I would try.
I guess you find out, right? Yeah, going
it's a lot of edging.
Going places topless sounds nice without it being needing to be like a political or sexual statement, but just like it's warm out.
It's warm. I'm playing shirts and skins with other people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're thwacking up sweaty next to each other. I would love it. Okay, sorry. I was like,
no, I really love that. I am going to be thinking about your boyfriend pregnant, and I hope that's okay. But I
mean, he can already do it with the tummy. Like, he walks around like, I'm like, people should give you their seat on the subway. Okay, so yes, when you're talking about like just the rationality of like, this is a thing that I have to tell her, Alex, when you were saying like, I'm so happy this is not a thing that I'm gonna like suppress or lie about. It's like, that's so wonderful that that's where your brain went, because I feel like a lot of people, when they have something, even not even as like big as this or like as like meaningful, like I was just watching a show where a guy got fired and didn't want to tell his wife because he was like, how is this going to make her look at me differently? Like, is this going to ruin our relationship? But that's not fundamental to who he is as a person. Like, he could get another job. You can't have like another self-discovery like this. And so it's really interesting that like you went through the process of, well, I have to tell her. Like there's no doubt in my mind. So it's more like how and when instead of if.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was like, that happened basically right before we were about to start living together. So like,
Great.
yeah, there's a little bit of like external pressure there, but I will say again, like, I'm not recommending, the autism spectrum to anyone, but
I am.
In this particular, I think the way that the way that social conventions don't exert the same kind of pressure because my brain just doesn't kind of process that input and doesn't find it relevant. I think not having that probably made, if I had to guess, these choices a lot easier. Like, I think the reason why I can speak about it as like such an obvious choice is because to my brain, that was the calculation. Yeah. Like, it's just that. And there's nothing really else around it.
I recommend the autism spectrum. So everybody get vaxxed, because apparently
get the boosters.
Get all the boosters.
Sorry.
Okay, so Bronwyn, do you remember like your first reaction?
Oh yeah. So this was a few months after, COVID touched down in New York, and we didn't live together at this time. We took a really long time before we moved in together, because we were both really kind of like clinging to our independence, but also needed to have an apartment situation that would make sense for us. And so we were going on those distance walks because I had a crazy roommate who didn't really believe in COVID, and I didn't want to kill Alex. I didn't want to die either. So we were like, it was
much obliged.
So we were like masked up outside, and she came out to me, and my first response was that I was really surprised because one of her roommates was non-binary, and so we talked about gender a lot. And I actually, when we first got together, I was writing for Bustle, and I did a lot of stories about the trans bathroom laws and a lot of LGBTQ stories. So talking about gender and sexuality was a big part of our relationship. And so I think I was like, it was nowhere on my radar because we talked about those topics, and obviously she hadn't come out then. So I was like, whoa, I didn't, okay, And then I wish I was just like, cool, I'm bisexual, this is great, but I was terrified. So I think maybe an hour after she told me, I started crying. Because I was also, because I had been writing stories on this, I also knew about the hate crimes and like the lack of safety, and I was worried about her. And so I was like worried about her, and then I was also felt like an asshole because I kind of was like, well, I'm worried about you. I also don't know if I'm gay, even though I'm very gay seeming. I don't know if like, and what will our relationship look like? Like, will we still like each other? Like with all these big changes? Like, so I had a bunch of big feelings. And at first I was just in shock, and in my head, I was trying to be supportive, but I know that in reality, I was like all over the place.
Totally. And that's like fine. Like, I feel like I would be thinking too, like, if I'm not able to like be in love with you, can I still be a friend to you? Because like, I've never been able to be very supportive of an ex, and like, this is like a different situation.
Totally. And we even had like a few months, and Alex, I'd want to hear your feeling of it, but we had a few months where we had conversations, and it was like, we don't really know what will happen, but we're going to stay together for now. And just like, I mean, again, it was lockdown time. So it was like, we're going to be there for each other. And then her roommate was moving to Colorado. And so it was like, why don't you come move in? I'm on the lease, but you can live here. You don't have to live with your crazy COVIDiot roommate who worked at a nursing home, by the way.
COVIDiot is amazing. I've never heard that.
I really wanted to get him fired, but he wouldn't tell me the nursing home he worked at. I don't believe in getting people fired unless they're trying to kill old people.
Right.
Or like young people.
Yeah. Don't kill people.
Just, like, don't kill people.
I'll get you fired.
Yeah, exactly.
A Karen with a caveat.
Thank you. Exactly. It's a focus Karen.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, why don't we live together and just try that out for a few months? I'll move in and we'll see how it feels, both on a living together level, but also with transition and So
it's honestly kind of like perfect that it was COVID-y, because it's like, well, I already know I like you and I'm not probably going to be dating. So let's just like figure this out without like the external pressure of like the world.
Yeah, precisely.
I highly recommend COVID to everyone.
COVID and autism. So RFK Jr. is not going to be on the podcast, is what I'm hearing?
No. Nope. He's not our guy.
Yeah.
Not even a little.
Did you say yet? Okay, cool. Well, so I saw, I don't remember whose perspective it was, but there was like a TikTok of this girl being like, me afraid to come out to my girlfriend as a woman. And then it's like, my girlfriend, right before I came out, I have to tell you something. I'm a lesbian. And then they both go, great. But it's so nice. Like, I'm sure not every relationship lines up like that, but like, it really just means that like your souls are so connected.
I feel really grateful. This is so selfish, but I'll say it. I feel grateful that Alex got me out of the closet, because I'm definitely on the like bisexual spectrum. So I wasn't like living in the compat life where I was with people I wasn't attracted to, like if I was a lesbian. But I was like, there were all these disconnects. I wasn't fully connecting, and I kind of gaslit myself and was like, don't take up space in the queer community. All of that bullshit, kind of internalized stuff. And now I'm like, oh, this is so nice.
Yeah,
so thanks, Alex.
It is.
Thanks for being gay.
Uh-huh. Anytime. Yeah. It's basically my only setting, so I'm glad that's okay with you.
And I do feel like we communicate better. I mean, we had to communicate so much. And yeah, we understand each other better now than we did before.
That's awesome.
Like, I do think, at least on my end, like there was more emotional disconnect before, because our experiences obviously are always going to be different, but we have more overlap now. And
totally,
the solidarity against the patriarchy on another level, right?
I have a lot more context for things that happen in her life in a way that I couldn't possibly have before. I also think that like estrogen just made me better. Like everything that was cool about me, everything that like however smart or intelligent people thought I was, however like confident people thought I was, estrogen like made all of that better.
Nice.
I think it allowed me to, like when I first started hormones, there was like a week of what I would think brain fog is like, where I just felt like, and I was like, when you're trying to like walk in a pool, it's like there's a lot of effort happening, but not a lot of motion.
Yeah.
Yeah, it felt like that for a while, and then one day, just like the clouds parted, and my brain just felt at ease. And I feel like after that, it was a little bit easier. Like I was more open to the idea of letting her see me, especially the way I am now. I was much more open to being seen. I was a lot more receptive. I just felt like just living my life with her got so much easier. after really being on estrogen. I was like, oh, maybe that's because before I have probably like a hormonal imbalance. Like my brain is sort of like, and then now that I've got the right chemistry, it's like, oh, okay, cool. Like, one, thanks for checking your voicemail after like 18 years. Like we've been trying to get in contact with you and tell you that we need this. Yeah, you know, I think it was, everything got a lot easier for me.
That's awesome.
And it was, I feel like I could be a much better partner. I feel like I am a much better partner now.
Yeah.
Than I ever could have been before.
And I'm sure you were great before, but
yeah,
she seems real happy.
Yeah. No, yeah. Definitely I feel like our relationship has gotten so much better, and it's like it's weird almost because we were together for almost 4 years before she came out. So at this point, we have been together as a queer relationship, like an longer, but that's really recent, and that's kind of surreal to feel like to think about, because it's like, of course I can remember it, but it does feel like such a strange parallel world. Like when I see a throwback photo of us, it's like, whoa. I'm not very good at articulating it, but it's really, like, who are they? Which I think is also, it's cool to think about how quickly we can change and adapt. Like, the narrative often is like, people don't change, or like, you know, you're just like stuck in whatever your rumination circles are. But when I look at an old photo and then I think about how different our relationship is with each other and the world, like, of course we're still us, we always have been, but so much has changed, and I like it. It's good.
No, it's so great. And the thing is if people are listening and they're like, well, I can't like relate to that from like a gender perspective or like a queer perspective, look back at your relationship. Like, there are so many people who look back at old pictures of them in a relationship and they're like, oh my God, like, we were such babies. We were such we were such different people. And it's like, you're not only just like changing together, it's like you're growing up together. Yes. Which is like really, really sweet.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, it's, and so much of it is allowing yourself to let someone else see you, you know, which sounds so obvious, but it's terrifying. Like I felt so embarrassed with how much I had to unpack with my own like gender and sexuality, because I was like, this is her life, you know, like this is her life. I don't want to center myself. But then over on the side, I'm like, oh shit, I had to unpack my ideas about, my own relationship with, I think I realized in heterosexual dynamics, I was so used to my femininity is in contrast to a partner and not like side by side with a partner. And so that was a really big thing for me to really like process.
Yeah, that's cool.
But being on the other side of it is really nice because I feel like I know myself better.
It's like you were defined by somebody else, but now like in being defined by somebody else, you actually become more individually yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. Because, it was kind of this funny thing of like, oh, the kind of mirroring or reverse mirroring is actually forcing me to go inward in a way that will that is just good as an adult moving forward in all sorts of situations.
Yeah, I think that's like the best relationships. It's like you become actually more individual as a couple.
Yeah.
But strengthens the couple itself. Because again, it's like, I don't need you to define me. I just want you because I'm so happy now with me.
Yes, exactly. And like we can be in conversation and of course we're always like have our own things and then our things together, and like how do those change us and how do we change?
I have a question about kind of the transition itself? Because I know, Alex, you said that you were, you know, immediately going into like the clothing of it all, and the hormones of it all. But was that kind of like a solo journey, or were you like, Bronwyn, like, come with me and like help me do my shots, or, you know, like, was it a collaboration, or just kind of like, let me figure this out and then I'll come back to you with how I am?
More the latter.
Okay.
I think something that we talked about a lot initially was I needed to, before I articulate a concept, I like to have the right words in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Not so much like rehearsing a script, but it's like I need to know something well enough so that I can describe and communicate it to you. And in our relationship, we'd had a lot of practice with that because being on the spectrum, I had to learn how to say, I don't understand when you say this.
Yeah.
Please explain this to me
Mm-hmm.
because I don't get it for this reason. And I had to be able to really come out of my shell. I had to really like come out of my own head and say, this is my confusion. Please help.
Yeah.
And I think in this situation, I really wanted to be able to have my thoughts organized enough so that I could say, I think this is what I want.
Yeah.
Because for some people, physically transitioning is not really for everybody. You mentioned earlier my roommate who was non-binary, physically transitioning wasn't for them, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, it was something that part of the experience of me trying to live my truth was very much about like the way my body feels. Because like
Mm-hmm.
I would say, circling back a moment to when I was younger, the thing that really sparked that for me was like watching two women fuck. Like the first time I saw lesbian sex, because I I'd never seen that before, I was like, I want to be her and like either of the two women in the scene.
Yeah.
Like, I want that. I don't know what this is, but like the intensity of how one feels around the other, I don't know what this magic is, but I want that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think all these years later.
Wait, was it porn or a TV show?
It was the L Word.
I knew it.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to Jennifer Beals.
Yep.
I was like, oh, her, I got many, many thank you cards for you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it's like, I wanted to be Bette Porter so badly. Like,
also, they're all just getting off so quickly in that show.
Like, so fast.
Like, it is insane. It is kissing. It is someone doing something to someone else. And then in 3 seconds, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that does look good.
Yeah. It's like there's like a minute of foreplay and then main event is everyone's coming. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's like, obviously, I understand objectively that like that's not really how it is, but like if the end result could be the same,
then
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
Like let's try that, you know. And then of course, because I have autism brain, it was like special interest unlocked, which just turned out really well for me.
Yeah.
So,
Special interest, lesbian sex.
Basically. Yeah. Or like, it was like, how do we do that? How do we create that? And I lived a lot of my life living vicariously through all of my partners, which is why like my approach to intimacy is very much like fill the room with it.
Yeah.
But I was doing that because the more the person I'm with expresses themselves in that way, the more of it I could get for myself.
Yeah.
Because that's always the way I wanted to feel. And so then I had a chance to actually do that. And then the course of hormones that I was prescribed originally, so I take the tablets.
Okay.
Which is, I guess, the way my doctor described it was like, we start you out on the tablets. We see if that works. If we can't do it with that delivery method, then we try some other ones, I think was the protocol.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it turned out that the standard course of just like a little bit of estrogen and like, I love that the size of the pills is so funny. The estrogen pill is this tiny little thing, and the lower your testosterone pill is this giant thing. It's like so huge by comparison.
And do you have to keep doing it, or is it just like okay?
Yeah. Oh my God. I have a funny story about that. When I got here to Amsterdam, I had to get my prescription refilled, and I went to a GP that was in my neighborhood. And the doctor here asked me she was like, "Oh, so you take these medicines?" I was like, "Yeah, I do. I just need, my same prescription." And she was like, "Oh, so you're transitioning. So like, are you finished?"
Yeah.
And I was like, "Baby." It's like, "Baby, that's not how it works."
We are always learning and growing.
It's like, "Baby, that's not how that goes."
I just love the idea of you being like, I'm finished and I won. Like,
yeah,
I
did it.
Exactly. I transitioned the most. I did it.
Exactly. Achievement unlocked.
I mean, I asked it. Like, it seems like the achievement's been unlocked, but yeah, it also makes sense that you have to. You. Yeah, girl.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys must feel just so lucky to be out of the U.S. right now. Like, besides the perfect storm of like COVID and Bronwyn's gay and like all this stuff, like Alex happens to get a job offer in like a wonderful European place while our country's going to shit and like laws are changing, and it's much harder to be a trans individual here.
Alex has been wanting to get out of the US for a really long time, and so even before she came out, it was kind of like this future conversation where she'd be like, yeah, like I want to get the fuck out of here. And I was always like, okay, yeah, but I mean, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. And then, after you were...
And then the bridge came to you.
The bridge came to us. When did you start talking to recruiters, Alex?
So this is kind of an interesting story. So in 2020, before pre-lockdown, I was in a conversation with a recruiter from here in the Netherlands, and I had actually gotten the job offer from the firm I currently work for, but I ended up not taking it because it just wasn't like really the right time. Like, I don't think we were in a place to move, and then really COVID hit New York, de Blasio closes Manhattan, and then like everything went off the rails. Also, the other issue was at the time, because this is still Trump won, the Dutch government stopped processing Americans' paperwork temporarily. So I would have needed, I was basically looking for a job in between jobs, because I'd been working for a pretty large commercial bank at the time for a while, and I was leaving that gig thinking about going to Europe. So I would have needed to wait 9 months for like my papers to get processed, which means I would have been out of work for that long. And that was just like too long for me. So it just didn't really come together. So fast forward 2 years, I'm back working in finance after a stint at Rent the Runway. I was working
I worked there
a hedge
too.
fund. Oh, nice.
In the
beginning. I was there in 2021, I think that's right.
I was there in 2008 when there were more interns than like actually hired people. Yeah.
That's like ground floor. You built the runway.
I was in charge of changing operations as an intern.
What?
Really?
And there was another intern who was in charge of expansion into Canada.
Expansion into another country?
Literally, like they paid us nothing, but we learned a lot.
Yeah, they're like, this is an opportunity for you to get underpaid.
Yeah.
But also, resume.
Zero paid.
Yeah.
Zero paid. Yeah.
Oh my God.
What a time for companies. But yeah, sorry, go on.
So then I was, I'd gotten a job at a hedge fund, and that did not go well. Needless to say. So at that point, the straw that broke the camel's back was I found out that my male colleagues were making I made 47% of their salary. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm done here. I'm done with New York. I'm kind of reading the room. The American political landscape in 2022 is beginning to look a little shaky.
I think that's when you check off transition. When you're getting paid half.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, I did it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. I was like, I have become she, her, hers. Yes, I'm getting paid half of what my male colleagues do to do the same job.
Less than half. That's crazy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, I'm out. So then I contacted the same recruiter I had been talking to in 2020. And I said, hey, we were talking about this firm in Amsterdam. Would they still be interested in someone with my skill set? And he was like, actually, they're looking for someone who's a little bit more senior like you. The pay range is better. If you're really willing to go, I'll get you a meeting. And so then that's how that happened. And because I'd already been through the interview process once, they fast tracked me through it the second time.
That's
because
awesome.
Basically I was interviewing with most of the same people. They really liked me before. They also liked me a second time. And then, the job offer came very quickly.
So cool. Ugh, congrats.
Thank you.
And Bronwyn said, I'm coming. I'm in love.
Yeah, I was like, well, I work remote. I've never lived in Europe. I'd never even been to a European country.
Awesome.
And so at first it was like, I'll come for a few months. Maybe we'll do like a back and forth situation. And that's not financially very feasible. Like, unless you have a lot of money and property. Like, when we really thought about it, because I was like, well, I
Or
don't
like
wanna...
a family member at Delta.
Right. Like I was like,
gives you
I don't want to fully leave New York, but also I want to come with you. And it's like, well, you kind of got to be somewhere. You can't.
Yeah.
Which, and so the first year I was in New York for the first few months while she was in Amsterdam. And then I was in Amsterdam for about 3 months. I came back for 3 months. And then I came back to Amsterdam. And that's when we started my actual immigration paperwork. And like, we're like, okay, like I'm living here. And then we had a really shitty immigration lawyer. So I joke that, people usually they call Americans who move here expats instead of immigrants. But I'm like, no, I had paper issues. I could have been deported. We're gay. Like, no, we are immigrants. But there was a period of time where technically I could have, I wasn't legal and it wasn't really our fault, but all of that's cleared up now. So there was a year where I was like, I can't go to the US and I don't know if I can stay. And that was, like 2023, part of 2024. So it's really only, even though Amsterdam has been like the place for 2 years, I've only really been like an official resident for 9 months. And so I feel like my mentality there's like a before and after for that, for me, of like this kind of temporary feeling. Yeah. And then like, okay, I'm part of the lease and I have friends now, like all of those things. So
I'm so proud that you have friends now.
Yeah. People said she couldn't do it.
My dad has this horrible joke whenever he goes, what are you doing tonight? I go, I'm going to have dinner with a friend. He goes, you have friends? And I'm like,
parents.
Yeah. You're like, Dad, could you write some new material?
Literally.
Just like one new joke.
The bit is hack.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys don't have to answer this one at all, but did intimacy change post transition and post coming out?
Not in the way that you would think, or at least for me.
Okay.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't feel like our way of being intimate changed that much. There were periods of not being intimate because like we were figuring out whether the relationship was gonna continue, and then also just like physical. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, Alex, but like, kind of being embodied, right?
Yeah, it's like I had to get used to how I feel now.
Yeah,
which I would say, girl horny, way different.
Okay.
Like everything is dialed. I think being trans is so funny because I have a lot of context for what it feels like living as a man. So like to go from one side to the other, it's like estrogen just dialed all my senses to like 15. So and when
on
it
a
comes
scale
to
of what?
intimacy, like 1 to 10.
Okay, great. I was like out of 100.
Yeah.
Like, so are you saying
No,
girl horny
like-
is more intense?
Yes,
Speak on it.
like without question.
Thank you.
Without question.
Thank you.
Like it's more intense and it's intense in a different way. Like the, not to get too graphic, but like the throbbing in my pelvis feeling. And it's like especially because obviously I don't have a uterus, so I don't menstruate, but I get the hormonal cycle piece. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
When you were talking about the fog,
time,
I was like, is this a phase that I recognize?
yeah, I think it is that
Yeah.
because I don't menstruate, but I do get the hormonal piece.
And you clean diva cups. You
Exactly.
This is true.
You're part of
this
it.
is true. It was like, it's like urgent.
Yeah.
She's like, now.
Yeah.
And I mean, right now.
Yeah.
Like, and it gets to the point where like I could be doing something and she's like, hey, first of all, she knocks like quietly and she's like, hey, we should, go handle it. And you're like, and I'm like, okay, but I'm working. And then about 5 minutes later, she's like, hey, and it just gets louder and louder and louder until I realize I'm like sitting in front of my computer, like on a Zoom call. And I'm like, I have to mute myself because I'm panting. Like, it's so mortifying, but also it's just the most like deliciously ambrosial feeling ever. Like, it's so
my
good.
God.
It's like,
it's the best.
Also like, it's like, you have like a Venus flytrap that's just like, feed me. But it's not always saying that.
More.
Yeah, but when it is, it's like the teeth are out. It's it's a situation.
It's a situation. And I feel very validated by this conversation because I feel like for years we're told like boys are just so horny. They can't control themselves and whatever. Like you're going to have to really like, I don't know, pay attention to his every whim because it's so important. And in every relationship that I've had with a man, I am so much hornier. And I'm like, do they not like me? Like, what is the problem? And it's like, no, like estrogen is like, it's really horny and it's really fun.
Yeah. Cause we
need a better reputation.
It really is. Yeah. Cause I definitely had that experience with some partners before Alex where I was like, is there something wrong with me? Because like, yeah. And also I would often be with people on antidepressants, which obviously that can affect sex drive and everything. But yeah.
But we push through.
We do. We persist. We persist.
Nevertheless. She persisted.
That's what that quote is about. So
that's what it's about.
Yeah. And I'm glad we're here to set the record straight.
It's about us and our Lexapro and our estrogen.
Exactly.
Right. And our 2 milligram estradiol.
Yeah.
Thank the Lord.
Yes. Okay. I usually ask everybody if they remember their first orgasms. Bronwyn, do you remember your first orgasm?
Yeah, my first orgasm, I was 23.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was, I didn't start having sex until I was like 20 or 21, which now that I'm older, I realize isn't that late, but it felt really late then.
At the time.
At the time, I had friends who had been fucking for years. So I was like, wow, this is so embarrassing. But so I had a few years where I would kind of feel like a sense of pleasure, but it was never an orgasm. And when I had an orgasm, I was like, oh, that's what it is.
Was it through sex?
It was through sex.
Oh, wow.
But it was a guy was going down on me. Yeah, because I didn't really get comfortable with like masturbation until like around the time I was having sex.
Religion.
Because of religion, yeah. And so, and also, honestly, I would get bored. This is so funny. Yeah. I would get bored. I was like, ugh, making myself come, who cares?
Yeah.
Which, like, of course, hurts. Once you start doing it, you're like, how the fuck was I functioning? Like, that's why I was so moody. What the fuck? But yeah, I remember it was overwhelming, but really nice. And that wasn't, now that I think about the other orgasms I've had, it was like a fine orgasm. There's some that are better than others.
Sure. Yeah. But it's like the first time you like taste like dessert, you're like, this is the best fucking dessert ever. And it's like, that's sprinkle cookies.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know
exactly
what else there is. Yeah.
Exactly.
Alex, do you remember your first one?
My first one as a boy was at 10.
Okay.
Yeah, like 9 or 10. And I think somehow I had just started to discover like playing with myself because there was just like a good feeling. And I was like, this feels nice. We're going to continue this thought.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, eventually I got to a place where it was like, there's a really good feeling. And then there was like fluid. And you're like, I don't know what this is. I was like, I don't know what this is about, but I like the way it makes me feel.
Mm-hmm.
There's some cleanup involved.
Yeah.
But like, okay. I'm like, we're going to go again at this tomorrow. And we're like, I was like, this is good.
Yeah.
We're going to repeat this.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely like at 10. And it's very much just like, I think the sort of like prepubescent, like, oh, you're beginning to understand that like, yeah, your body has erogenous zones and you can feel things. My first orgasm as a woman was like a couple of years ago. And it was probably like, it was the first time I really like had masturbated after taking hormones, because as a man, I already had a pretty high sex drive. And then once I started hormones, there was a period where I think my body was just adjusting to the new normal.
Right.
So then I wasn't really like, I wasn't intimate really with anyone or myself. And then, yeah, one day she was like, hey, and I was like, let's give this a go. You know,
During a Zoom call?
And it's like,
was it during a Zoom call?
Definitely not during a Zoom call, thank you. Yeah, thankfully not at work.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like, dear employer, I'm not doing that on Zoom calls, I promise.
My camera's off.
Guy
It's
who like
fine.
jacked off on the news or whatever, and he only got fired for like a month.
That's so fucking funny.
It was insane.
That's both hilarious and sad.
And infuriating. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, deeply, so much rage. Yeah, there was a day where I was just feeling, I don't know, something was like, you haven't touched yourself in a while, you should.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, then we had like first girl orgasm, and that shit was the bomb. Like,
Oh my God.
and it was, and I knew it was different because I felt it like through my whole body.
Unreal.
Like phantom vulva, totally a thing. I was like,
Cool.
oh, if this were a real part of my anatomy right now, we would be oh so wet. Like,
Oh my God.
yeah, it was like toes curling, I can't breathe, and then I'm like curled in a fetal position afterward. Yeah, it was great.
That's the position. Like, I don't know if men do that, but like, I know I'm having a good time if I'm like scrunched.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because you need to have like the right
Yeah.
reach and leverage.
Yeah.
And also, yeah.
If I become like a nautilus shell,
yeah.
like, I'm just like,
You're like a vibrating shell, just like, all right.
yeah. Oh my God, that sounds
Yeah.
I'm so happy for that experience and for you.
Thank you. I appreciate
so
it.
cool.
Again, estrogen, best thing ever.
I guess my final question has nothing to do with gender at all. It's more because we've been talking about autism, and I'm a big fan of the show Love on the Spectrum. It has some of its problems, but I think it really like shows like a lot of humanity and like how happy people can be with supportive families and like yada yada yada. And I was showing it to an older person that I know who I feel like I have to kind of hold their hand to be like, look, people are people, like in a lot of different settings. And
Sure.
At one point they were like, oh, some of these girls are hot. Like if I dated one of these people, like, would you judge me for it? And I was like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, 'cause like, is it taking advantage of somebody? And I was like, I'm not entirely, like there's really high functioning people. Like as long as like there's like consent kind of was like my answer. But I don't know if that was even like a good answer to give. So Alex, I don't know if, obviously you're not the representative for all people on the spectrum, but like kind of like what would your answer to that be? And like Bronwyn, as somebody who doesn't have autism that dates somebody that does, like, how do you guys feel about that conversation?
That's interesting. I feel like the question, there's a lot of implications in that question.
Right.
And there's a lot of assumptions in it. And I think many of those assumptions are inappropriate appropriate is the word I'm going to use there. I think the important thing to remember is the autism spectrum, just like the gender spectrum, we come in all shapes and sizes.
Yeah.
And I think what I like about the discourse around autism spectrum disorders is that, like, when I was growing up, I would not have been diagnosed because if you wanted to get an in order to get an autism diagnosis, you had to be on the part of the spectrum where you really needed assistance. It was those children were readily identified because it was much more obvious in their behavior or their mannerisms. It was like they needed support, so we identified them. And I think we've gotten away from, in large parts, that assumption of like, oh, autism has to look like this.
Yeah.
And I think that's great. But I feel like from maybe the next step in that is realizing, like, yeah, we do look and feel like normal people, especially because autistic people, most of what we spend our everyday doing is pantomiming neurotypical behavior to neurotypical people.
Totally.
So, like, yeah, of course we blend in. So, like, so many of the assumptions in that question almost like presume there'd be like some kind of power imbalance between like the neurotypical brain and the neurodivergent brain, and like that's not at all how it works. And I think it's important, to remember that like autistic people are people too.
Yeah.
Like the difference is, and like that seems like such a cliche thing to say, but it feels important. Like when I am with Bronwyn, the thing that she does is she gives me the space to express myself on my own terms. And the patience that she has with me is largely in pursuit of allowing me the space I need to get to the idea. Because it's not that I can't tell her how I feel. It's not that I don't have the language. It's that like my brain needs time.
Yeah.
I have to kind of cook on an idea for a while. I have to cook on a thought before I can really get it to her in a package that I think will make sense. And I think, like maybe the story is more about grace than anything else.
Totally.
Like being with a person on the spectrum, I think it's important. Yeah, it's important to have grace. It's important to realize that even though you don't understand this person and how they think, one, you can if you let them. Like if you create a space that's safe for the autistic person in your life to find their way to communicate with you in their way, you can also you will also be educated in how to commune with them. Like if that makes sense.
It kind of sounds like learning how to communicate with anyone.
Yeah.
And, like how any specific person needs to be communicated with. Like when you were saying the thing about time, I relate to that a lot because I need time to process, especially if I'm in an argument or something that like I haven't wrapped my head around or whatever. I'm like, don't talk to me yet. I need to be alone for like however long it takes me to process like what I'm thinking for me to bring this to you in like a way that's not going to be like angry or like irrational.
Yeah, like honestly, one thing that I've joked, like Alex and I have joked about, is I've always really been attracted to passion and like intelligence. Like if somebody's passionate about something, I'm like, fuck yeah, even if I don't know anything about it. And I think over the years in both like not just romantic relationships, but friendships, like before there was like super widespread language of neurodivergence, like a lot of people I've been close to actually have been autistic, or like I had a good friend in high school, but because of the language around the spectrum, because he was like, oh, in a band and, not fitting the stereotypes, I was just like, oh yeah, he like knows everything in alphabetical order about like Pig Destroyer, or whatever. And my family, like I'm from a very big family. There's a lot of personalities. There's also like I have I mean, I don't want to speak for other family members, but like there's neurodivergence is definitely in my family. So even though I'm not diagnosed with anything officially, I just like the spectrum of neurodivergence feels so normal to me. That being with Alex, like I actually joke that it's easier because we do communicate directly. Like, and I've been in relationships where I haven't been as direct, or a partner hasn't been as direct, or like we don't communicate because it's scary. And I think in many ways it's nice just knowing like, okay, like let's say whatever is happening, even if it's hard to talk about. And so, and then obviously like, you know, like Alex was saying, and like you were saying, it's like any relationship, of course, you have to figure out how do you work? What does my brain do? What does your brain do? How do we talk? Obviously, like, if a person's like, oh, that person's hot, is it okay if I date them? Then there's a really big, like, leap between them and, like, dating that person. Which obviously I know, like...
No, honestly, my first thing in my head was, like, I was like, would they date you? Like... I'm like, this girl has so many degrees and runs her own company. Like, I don't know if she would go for...
Yeah. Totally.
You.
Yeah.
And my friend Kester, she she actually made this chart of like emotions, like, you know, there's emotion charts, but she's an artist, and she's so good at talking about like the spectrum of neurodivergence, like even if you're not autistic or ADHD or like one of the forms of neurodivergence we talk about more, like all of our brains are so different, and of course we have to have some social norms so that we can like interact with each other. Otherwise, you know, you don't have 4 hours to get to know someone every time you have a conversation, of course. But I wish I was as articulate as her about it, but she's really good at talking about...
Well, that's why your date was 6 hours, your first date.
Yeah, well, we had to like lay out all of our weird... Yeah, we had to lay out all of our weird shit and then be like, okay, cool, do you want to take a shot?
Yeah, I raise you your weird shit and I tell you this about my weird shit. I like that weird shit. Let's continue.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, I see your weird shit and I raise you a special interest.
Yeah. I just thought it was like the stupidest question ever. Also because like I've suspected that I have autism for the longest time, and I went to get like pre-tested. You know, you get pre-tested before like the full test. And it was the strangest thing because the woman, after like, I guess an hour or two with me, goes, listen, autism testing is very expensive. And if you ever need extra time or you're going back to school, you come back and you get tested. But for now, I don't think you need to know if you have autism. And I go, just say yes then.
You're like I recently...
It's like, just say what you gotta say.
Say what you need to say. But either way, it's like it shouldn't change anybody's perception of themselves besides like a little more understanding.
Right, like having like you know, grace with yourself or tools.
Like being, oh, this is why I do this, and like knowing how to communicate a little bit more to other people.
Yeah, like I had a friend recently say like, oh, I'm pretty sure, you know, I'm autistic. And I was like, well, cool, because like a lot of my favorite people are, so hell yeah.
Yeah. Oh, did you think this was going to make you special?
Yeah. No. Yeah. Oh, okay, tell me something else.
Yeah. Still going to hold you accountable for stuff. Yeah. And just let me know how you need to be spoken to.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. You guys, this has been awesome. I'm like very in love with your love, and I feel very lucky to have had you guys on. Bronwyn, where can everybody find you online?
Yeah, you can follow me on Instagram at bron.computer, and I post about shows and all sorts of mischief. I also have a Substack that's called Arguing with Strangers. I always link it on my my Instagram. And if you're in Amsterdam, you can see me do comedy here, but I'm also going to be coming back to the US in the fall, so I'll hop through New York and Seattle and Las Vegas, so I will update on those things, but we should hang out.
Yeah, no, I would love to.
Yeah. That'd be great.
Alex, do you want to be found on the internet?
So you may be disappointed in how empty my feeds are, but if you'd like to follow me on Instagram, I'm at the Jazz Disciple on Instagram. I'm also on Blue Sky these days because Twitter is a hellscape.
Yep.
So I'm at the Sapphic Seraph on Blue Sky.
Fonts. It's like a telltale sign.
Honestly, it is.
If Helvetica is your favorite movie, you might have autism.
Also, you are, if you come to Amsterdam, you can always come stay here. We have an extra room.
I would fucking die.
Yeah.
And maybe I'll bring my pregnant boyfriend as well.
Yeah, bring your pregnant boyfriend.
Hey.
As long as the water doesn't break in the hallway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it is his last day
Yeah.
of his 9-month pregnancy.
Yeah, as a
The more hormones, the better.
temporarily pregnant woman.
I have to ask everybody this after a sexual experience, which this has been. Bronwyn, did you finish?
Yeah, a couple times.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Alex, did you finish?
Girl, you already know.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for coming.
I love coming together.
Yes. You guys, you can find me at Remy Casimir. Find the podcast at How Come Podcast. DM us your thoughts. And if you want to watch this episode unedited with video, patreon.com/howcome. You guys, again, it was so nice to have you here. And I hope to see you soon.
Yeah, so fun. Thank you for
So
having
great to be
us.
here. Thank you.
Of course. You guys, thanks for listening. And we'll see you next time on How Come. Bye.
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 Yay.
Yay.
It's not you, it's me. I try so hard to finish honestly. They say you'll know when you go all the way from A right down to O. Oh no, I think that I still got a ways to go. Oh, I'm sick of this and I have got to know. How come? How come? How come I can't achieve? How come I can't achieve? I'm rolling up my sleeves. I'm rolling up my sleeves. Oh baby, I believe these guests can help. 'Cause I can't do it by myself. I wanna just